happens to athletes after they're done playing the sport? It's something I've been thinking about a lot recently because my senior season has ended and football's over now. And I'm looking back at these other classes like class of 2024, and like I'm already seeing guys on the sideline coming back saying if I was in the game, this would happen if I was there. And I'm sitting here like, bro, your career's over, man. Just let it go. And this in general, just looking at people kind of just in the program being like, what's gonna happen to them, how they're gonna end up in life, and just general stuff like that kind of link me to other things because there's been some people that's gone D1 in our program. So I'm like, what happens to them? Where did they go? Why did they transfer? What's their career looking like? And I just kind of thought about just in general, what happens to athletes after they're done? So that's going to be what I'm going to be talking about for today. Just before I go any further, man, please spare me like a subscribe and a like. You never know, man. I could be your favorite content creator at the end of the day. So just be early, man. Just be early to support. I'm gonna organize this video and split it up just so like I'm not like all over the place. Like we're gonna go by high school, D1, and then all the way up to NFL. So I also got a couple examples with those. So it's gonna be nice telling them. Now for the first level, I'm gonna start with high school. All right, so there's a couple paths that a athlete can take after their high school career has ended, and the first one I'm going to be going over is the normal path. For the normal path, there's really not too much to it. It's really you just live like a normal person. You just realize that hey, your sports career has ended here. Maybe every now and then you may play some recreational sports. You might do pick up basketball or something like that. But overall, you're kind of just done. You're really just honing in college, and you're probably maybe starting some sort of relationship that may lead to a family. And that's pretty much how it normally goes. Like you just realize that it's over, it's done, and you kind of keep pushing. Now, for the next one, this is going to be the insecure or unfulfilled athlete. Now, with this athlete, this can come about many ways. You probably maybe weren't a starter, or you were on the bench, or you were a good player and you just didn't make it as far as you wanted to in your career. And at the end of the day, you just have some stuff that you just felt like you could have did better on, or you wanted to do better on, and it leaves this hole inside of you. From what I noticed, there's about, I'll say, two ways that these type of players handle it. And one is coaching, and the other is just forcing their kids to do some sort of sports or just heavily encouraging their kids to do a sport. And the reason they do this is because they want to feel like they still have a chance or they still did that achievement, even if it wasn't them. Like if they're still linked in some way, whether it's their child or a player on their team that they coach up to do it, it makes them feel 10 times better than what they originally were. This one's going to be the dude that's stuck in the past. Really, I don't got to say that much because honestly, you guys, you've probably known or seen a guy like this. When I heard about certain things like this, whether it was through my freshman or sophomore year, I never thought I'd see. I thought it was just like, oh, it's just kind of like a myth. Yeah, and by this point, you should know I was definitely wrong. Start to see these players like pop up on the sideline, like repeatedly over and over again. Like not like, hey, it's a homecoming, or maybe I come to like every few games, where it's like every Friday you're coming to the games after you've graduated, or every like you graduated like 2 years ago. It's like I'm not gonna lie, bro. You gotta give it up. Now, for the last one, this is just gonna be the coach. There's multiple reasons of why these people become a coach, just like the one that I listed earlier. I would say for like most coaches, I would say they're generally pretty normal people. They're gonna give you a good lesson. You got some that are maybe harder on you. You got some that are maybe more laid back and chill. So I really can't just subgroup them all together. Like it really just depends on the type of player that they were to begin with. And now that that's wrapped up, the next one is going to be college.
What do you got? McClain! He's still on his feet! Oh my goodness! It's gone! Unbelievable!
Now, just so I can get this out the way, this is more or less just going over like D1 athletes. I'm not saying this doesn't apply to like any other divisions like Division 3 or Division 2. It's just this is going to be more like stuff revolving around Divisional 1 players. So for any of my community college crusaders, Divisional 3 troopers, Divisional 2 tacticians. I'm sorry, man, this just ain't your video. The first type of athlete I'm going to start off with is the athlete that simply wasn't good enough. And what I mean by that is that they were good enough to go D1, but besides from that, since they're pretty much around people that were in the same situation as them being that guy at their high school, once you match them up with people that are around that same skill level or better, they simply just weren't good enough to get any real playing time. And I mean, overall, this really isn't too bad. I mean, for your career it is, but like when you really think about it on the bright side, like you're getting a free education, you're probably getting free meals, and just overall you're staying in shape. I mean, even if they didn't get as much playing time as they wanted, or they didn't really get the starting role that they wanted, a lot of times when they look back, they're like, at least I went D1. Next player is going to be super senior or the multi-redshirt athlete. Now, these athletes start out normal when they usually enter university, but some sort of complications like injuries or them entering the transfer portal at a certain time usually means that they got to become a redshirt, or maybe just they're a part of like a elite program. Overall, they just got to be a redshirt for the program, and it just starts to just add on. If this happens to them over and over again, there's just up until a certain point where there's a point of no return and your athletic career is truly going nowhere. And that point of return is going to be around the 6-year mark. Don't get me wrong, every now and then there's going to be that athlete that's a little bit older that can make it still pro. Like I know there was a one at Georgia, I forgot his name. I'm probably going to put him up on screen still, but I'm pretty sure he was 25 and he ended up getting drafted by the Rams. Now, for most people, they're not even going to make it pro. So if you're just a more older player, that makes the odds even lower. Typically, after it's all said and done for these players, they usually have a nice cushion to lay back on. Because they've spent additional years in college, typically they're able to get something like a bachelor's, or maybe if they stay long enough, they can get something like a doctorate degree, which can get them a nice career. Then the next player on this list is going to be the average starter. Now, these players, I would say, are definitely above average, even for like D1 competition. And then on top of that, I would say around the sophomore year or junior year is when they finally earn out the starting spot, because they may transfer to another program where the system works for them, or they stay in the program, they see what works for other players or the elite players, and they just implement that into their game and they just gain that spot. Now, these are the type of players that end up going to be, I would say, pretty average players. Like they might be some like in the 4th round of the NFL draft. They may go unsigned and they may sign with something like the CFL or like a training camp spot and be on special teams during football, or just like some sort of training member 10-day contract for the NBA. Just that type of ballpark of player. And I would say overall, since these like the career of these type of players don't really last too long, after it's all said and done, they might just become like a trainer of some sort, like a personal trainer in charge for certain courses, or they may just go back to their hometown, become a coach of their school that they used to go to, or just become a coach for a different school since they want to stay involved with the game, since they've put so much time and effort into the game. I'm going to go on to the next section and also last section, pro sports.
Back to Iguodala. Oh, blocked by James.
Now, just for this section, it's not going to be too long. I'm going to say it's going to be pretty short. There's not really too much for me to go. And the reason is because I just want to cover like the average athlete at the pro level, because we already talk about like, hey, what happens to this top tier athlete? What happens to that top tier athlete? But a lot of times you don't really hear about what happens to the average player after they're done playing, or like what happens to them even when they're during their playing. You know what I mean? A lot of these players are going to be the type of players you see on practice squads, probably guys that are subbing in, maybe even starting. So for like the average player, I'm not going to look it up or any statistics like that. It's probably anywhere from like, I'll say 3 to 6 years. And it falls in between there, maybe something like 4 or 5 years is when most players end up like just finishing or quitting. Just to give a little background information, personally, I'm from St. Louis. Honestly, if anybody's watching the video is also from there, I'm just saying, you're a real one. And the reason this is important is because we used to have a team that was named the St. Louis Rams, but they left for LA, so they're now the LA Rams. But I did end up meeting a few of the players from that teams around different points in my life. And there's one instance where I have a specific memory because there is a person in my class whose father was a NFL player. Just from what I remember, since it was always a question asked by like teachers and stuff like that, this person made a decent amount of money, but not a lot of money from what I remember, because after this player was done, they didn't really go anywhere else since they didn't really have any other opportunities, so they just became a plumber. And there's been some other instances where I've run into them like in other locations, whether it's from the gas station or a store or just like in some random place. And it's like after you see them in like different locations, like these just normal locations, you get the idea that dang, they really are just normal people. At least so I can just answer the general question of this video, what happens to athletes after they're done? There's really just a plethora of things what happens after they're done. There's not necessarily one set thing. But one thing that is set is that typically on average, they may do something still involved with the sport. or they may become a coach in some instances, or they just might hang it up and just have a normal family. That's what usually happens.
Now, the video is going to be ended here because I don't know what happened to my previous clips, but it was already the end of the video, so there's really not too much I can do. As of the time of this video going up, it's going to be around Thanksgiving, so if you're watching around that time, have a good Thanksgiving, spend time with your family, and just think about what you're thankful about. I'm probably going to put my Insta up on the screen, and there will be another video probably coming out, I'll say in the next week and a half or something like that, so if you want to see that, subscribe, like, put noties on, and also, once again, I'm out.